I'm only taking one step at a time towards healing myself. I had to get out, I found a way out. No more living in pain or misery. It's all about protecting my energy. Keep the negative away from me, because I am just keeping my peace. Cut off everything that no longer was serving me, and I chose to start loving myself. I walk in my purpose, no looking back, I'm only going with it. B.O. standing there, a better version of me. I must say that I'm proud of me. It's not about how you feel, I'm living proof that God is real. So let me show you how to heal. Damn it, I'm wearing it well, cause I came a long way. My journey isn't yet complete, that's what it look like to heal. Damn it, I'm wearing it well, I'm proud of myself. It's nothing to it, you can do it, all you gotta do is just fight through it. Create a soul, create a soul, create a soul. Just fight through it. Create a soul, create a soul, create a soul, create a soul, yeah, yeah.
So all of a sudden, my truck's disappearing. I end up in jail 3 different times. The third time, I had quit drinking for like a month. I'm like, man, something's happening. I have a few beers, and I'm turning into the kind of people I hate. And so there was a fundraiser at Sacramento State University. Now I'm living in Sacramento. And one of my teammates, Dan Buns, was going to be speaking at the barbecue, a fundraiser for the football team. And my old high school coach, Bob Manos, was a Sac State grad. And then now he's the head coach at Sac State. So I was going to know a bunch of guys. My brother and I go, and my brother's an old Sac State grad too. He played ball there. And afterwards, a bunch of us went out, had a couple beers. I told everyone, hey, I'm just having like 2-3 beers. And at 11 o'clock, I'm leaving. Because I knew if I stayed, I would keep drinking. 11 o'clock, I said, I'm out of here. And everyone's going to stay. I said, no, if I stay, I'm going to keep drinking. To this day, I can picture in my mind walking out of the bar, walking toward the back of my truck, pulling my keys out, and I don't remember anything else. I got arrested 3.5 hours later. I had to look up the cops that arrested me. I get arrested at 2:30 or 3:30 in the morning in the middle of an intersection, miles from where I lived. I'm slumped over the wheel. My truck's running in gear. My foot's on the clutch, and I'm having minor convulsions. Cop pulls up, tap on the window, eyes dilated. I'm slurring my speech. Well, what had happened was I developed brain seizures from alcohol. That's why I was ended up in jail, and I get really violent. And they thought I was on angel dust. So they barely get the keys out, but I'm fighting them. They can't get me out of the truck. They call on a backup unit. There's like cop cars. This is all secondhand. I looked up the cop a year or two later and sat down with him and asked him what happened that night. I have no memory for the next 18 months after this deal. So we end up, I get arrested for drunk driving, drunk in public, disturbing the peace, resisting arrest, and being under the influence of narcotics. So 1 minute I'm walking out of the bar. My next memory is I'm standing in jail 5 or 6 hours later, not past standing, and I'm looking around going, how did I get here? And I see they had given me a blood test. and I didn't remember that. So I go to get my belongings when I get released, and they start rattling off all these things. I'm like, oh man, me who doesn't do drugs, who knows? I may have somebody offered me something, maybe I did it. So I had to hire an attorney. I go to court, and I have no idea what I'm headed for, and ended up. I pled guilty to reckless driving, which my insurance went through the roof. But and so I go back and see the neurosurgeon at Stanford. Okay, I said, hey, something's happened since your brain surgery. And of course, he gets real defensive. Well, not from my surgery. I said, well, I have a couple beers now, and I turn into the kind of people that I hate. He does a CAT scan, a brain scan on me. He says, you look fine. I told him, I'm leaving for Mexico tomorrow with my brother and his wife. We're renting a little cabin down there. We're going to fish and just hang out for a few days. My brother worked for an airline, so we had free tickets, right? Mm-hmm. He goes, no problem. Leave the country. I said, what about drinking? No problem. We fly down there the next day. I have one margarita at dinner, start getting pounding headaches. I go back to the room, and we're all three of us are just sharing this little room. I mean, my head starts going back to like it was, they stay out a couple hours. They come back in. I'm going into a coma. Now, Mel's calling my brother Bob in Sacramento. Bob's calling an orthopedic surgeon who had operated on him, and he's friends now. He's calling Dr. Agee. Dr. Agee's calling a neurosurgeon friend of his, Dr. Cobb. Dr. Cobb tells Agee, your friend is dying in Mexico. Get him home. Do not let them do brain surgery there. So Agee calls Bob. Bob calls Mel in Mexico. He goes, you got to get him home. Well, they never told me these shunts go out. I've had 9 of them now. They told me I could play with it, which was BS. While I'm in intensive care, the trainers and doctors called me while I'm in intensive care and said, hey, Visk, we're looking at having a special made helmet. You can keep playing. So I came back after my brain. I worked out the rest of the year, that Super Bowl season, on injury reserve, thinking I'm still playing.
So people that have shunts have to be very careful, even little kids playing outside.
Exactly. If you jar it, the tip of that catheter has to be right in the middle of that little tiny ventricle in the middle of your brain. And if you jar it, that tube gets plugged up with your brain and you're going back into a coma. Wow. So it was absolute BS. They wanted it to look like I quit and wasn't driven out of the game by an injury. Plus they were afraid of, litigation and all that. And so, I lose my train of thought. Where was I?
They were afraid of litigation.
Okay. So the Mel gets me home from Mexico. We get a new doctor, this Dr. Cobb in Sacramento. Mm-hmm. Reoperates. And the first hole they drilled in my skull was way in the back of my head, and the tube has to go clear to the middle of my brain, right? But he told my family, he goes, that wasn't a good place to put it, but he didn't want to traumatize me anymore because I was already,
I've been through it already.
Yep. And so they put the shunt back in there, and 10 hours later, my brother gets a call from the hospital. They said, your family should get down here. We're losing him. We're taking him back in for another brain surgery. He's back in a coma. It doesn't look good. They rushed me back in 10 hours after my second brain surgery. Now he moves it where he would have put it. Third brain surgery. Again, this is all within 8 months. Okay. I have zero memory the next 16, 18 months of my life. Now, I was working for my brother in construction at the time, and he said, just a couple days after I get out of the hospital, I show up at work, and he's a general contractor. We're doing big addition remodels on homes. Mm-hmm. He says, I show up, I've got 40 staples in the back of my head and half my head shaved, and I was so out of it. He said, I walked around like that for months, not even noticing that one side is growing out and the other side's real long and shaggy. I was completely out of it. He says, I show up at work a few days after the surgery. He goes, what are you doing? I go, I'm here to work. He goes, you can't work like this. And I guess I would get, no one could talk to me. I would get real explosive. Mm-hmm. And so people would back off. And he said he and our other carpenter would watch me framing walls upside down or backwards, and no one could say anything to me. And I'd work 2 or 3 or 4 hours, he said, and all of a sudden I'd go out to the front of the house to get more lumber, and then he wouldn't see or hear from me for 3 or 4 or 5 days, and I'd just show back up again. No one knew where I went. I don't even know where I went. I was completely out of it for months. 16, 18 months later, when my memory comes back, my first recollection, hospital bills. I'd write on it, please bill San Francisco 49ers. And I wrote it so many times, I still remember their address to this day, 711 Nevada Street, Redwood City. Now, I was never cut. I was never released. When I had those 2 brain surgeries after the Super Bowl, I was so out of it for a year and a half, I just never went back. I mean, I don't know if I even knew I was playing for the 49ers. So I was never officially released. So I get these hospital bills. I'd write on it, please bill San Francisco 49ers. A week and a half later, I'd get it back from the Niners, and all they would write was, you owe this amount, and circle it. A couple hundred, whatever it was, for 2 emergency brain surgeries. Not even a card like, hey, Visk, sorry to hear you're having more surgeries.
That's what I was just going to ask you. So like this whole 18 months of you not remembering anything, nobody reached out to your brother or anybody just to see how you're doing or what happened?
No one called, and they knew I was in surgery because that doc's going, hey, man, he's back in here again. You know, everyone knew on the 49ers end. Not a phone call to my parents. Sorry to hear, hey, you know, we're here for you guys if you need anything. Threw me to the wolves. Now, keep in mind, when I played, I've asked people, ask me, well, what did you do with all the money you made? And I go, well, let's see. So when I was a 6th-round pick the year before with the Jets, I signed for a $15,000 signing bonus, at which I cleared 10, and my rookie salary was $35,000. My second year would have been $45,000, and had I lasted 3 years, I would have made all of $65,000. So I made a total in 2 years playing, including 2 playoff checks, a Super Bowl check. I made a total of like $106,000 or $109,000 in 2 years. Okay, as a kid with no degree, great, but months and years go by where I was bouncing at nights and working for my brother, you know, for $12 an hour as a laborer because I had no skills. I wasn't a carpenter yet. Mm-hmm. Now I've got these hospital bills coming in. I have creditors calling me for years, threatening to take my truck, threatening to, my bank account. I said, there's no money in my bank accounts. I mean, I lived for a year and a half, and that's what I did. I fought creditors for years. I had to hire an attorney, go to court, and sue for work comp. And unbeknownst to me, when I won in '86, I was the very first NFL player to ever won a work comp case, and the only one till about 2010. No one else won a case. And to me, it was just cut and dry. So when I won my case in 85 or 80, whatever, I can't remember exactly, they offered me $35,000. And I told them, put it where the sun don't shine. And this is what I want. I want what every injured employee has earned. I want my past medical paid. I said, I want my future medical left open. And thank you, God, I said that because I had 6 more brain surgeries after that. Jesus. And I had 2 more knee surgeries repairing what they screwed up while I was in that legal battle for years. I had 2 more knee surgeries in '84 while I'm fighting all this other, stuff. And so I said, and not only want my future medical left open, I can no longer function in my capacity as an employee of the 49ers. I don't call myself a player. I was an employee. And you are obliged by law to retrain me in a field of work where I make a comparable amount of money. That's called vocational rehab. If I was pushing a broom at a school and got injured working, they would be obliged by law to retrain me in a field of work where I made the same amount as I was making pushing a broom. Vocational rehab. So I said, all I want to do is I don't want your $35,000. I said, I want my past paid, my future left open, and I want to use voc rehab, and I want to go back to school and finish my biology degree. Now, I had 4 years of biology at Colorado, but I was drafted before I graduated. So there's a big, discussion, all it, and they agree, yeah, this would be good for him. So I go back to school at Sacramento State University in 86. I had 4 more semesters of chemistry, 2 of physics, 2 of pre-calc left.
Mhm.
On a 10-month period, I had 5 more emergency brain surgeries, several grand mal seizures. I had 1 seizure. It was in organic chemistry 3 times. I was almost through it. My shunt blew out, brain surgery dropped out. Took it again, almost through it, brain surgery dropped out. Came back a 3rd time, had brain surgery on Saturday. I leave the hospital 26 hours post brain surgery. Monday, I'm back in class. I'm not going to drop out. And I have a 55-minute grand mal seizure, a monster seizure. Don't remember that. I remember when it hit me, and that was it. Drop out of school again. Now I've developed dyslexia. Again, I mean, to this day, I have to write down. I have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of these notebooks documenting everything I do every day. And so I learned how to get through that stuff.
Mhm.
Kept my head down, just kept grinding. I got through all of my classes. I graduated in 1990. After 5 more years, I was 32 years old. I finished my degree in biology, my second dream as a kid, behind making it in the NFL. And I started work as a wildlife biologist. And then in 93, so I was 93, that shunt blows out. Have my 9th brain surgery, come back to work as a wildlife biologist. I was volunteering in the 80s, back when I was battling all that other stuff, but I was working at a crisis intervention shelter. I started volunteering there 2 nights a week. It was a live-in shelter. It was a residential home, had 5 beds, and then I ended up taking a job there. I would do 2 28-hour shifts a week where I lived there with the kids.
Mhm.
24-hour hotline, working with these kids. They all had a lot of stuff going on. I loved working there with the kids. And then I started having a whole bunch more brain surgeries. I couldn't be responsible for them,
Mhm.
So 93, I had my 9th brain surgery, went back to work as a biologist. Then I got married in 94 to Christy, and I met Christy and little Steph, my oldest. Steph was 2 when I met him at the gym, and little Steph just harpooned me. The most gorgeous little kid, blonde curls, big blue eyes, and she used to call me the giant, And so Christy and Steph and I get married when Steph's 4. That was 95, and then I taught high school biology, chemistry, environmental studies, and English language learners algebra for 2.5 years. Then
Wow.
went back to the biology work in 99. And then in 03, I started my own environmental consulting business. And then in 06, I merged with this big geotechnical firm they had 17 offices in Washington, Idaho, and Oregon. The geoengineers came down. They wanted to open an office in California. So we merged, and then after 2.5 years, I wasn't vested till 3 years. There was no money exchanged. It was all stock option, but I had to be there for 3 years. 2 years, 7 months into it, they cut me loose. Now I'm like late 50s, starting over again for the 5th time. I have 3 small kids, and my brain is getting worse and worse. I'm just grinding it out, trying to just keep my head above water, trying to stay on top of projects. And I went back into doing environmental consulting stuff. And it was just getting to where I would do big projects and forget to bill them, like $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 contract. I mean, that I would do all this work for months and not bill, or I would double and triple bill people because I had to let everybody go. The economy started imploding, and geoengineers cut me loose. So it was a nightmare. And finally, a lot of things happened to me in 2010. I averaged 104 hours a week. My last 14 months I worked. I was doing everything in my power to keep the home over my kid's house. And in 2010, my life changed when Jean Marie Laskus wrote the article in GQ magazine titled "The Game Brain: The NFL's Cover-Up of Brain Injuries." That's where the movie Concussion on Dr. Bennett O'Malley was based on, that article.
Okay.
So I read it. It's 23 pages. I still have that original. I tell people, as you can see, I don't read GQ magazine, but one of my old Colorado teammates, I'm working real late one night, and he sends me this text, "Hey, Vis, check out GQ magazine, this article." Well, by the time I went to get it, it was out of print, like weeks later. So I pull it up one night, like I said, and I print it out and I'm reading it, and I'm just getting livid. And I can tell you how it starts, even in my memory. The first paragraph: on a cold, still, foggy Pittsburgh day, young neuropathologist Bennett O'Malley comes into the Allegheny coroner's office. There on the slab is Mike Webster. Okay, Mike Webster, one of the greatest NFL players ever, won 5 Super Bowl rings with the Steelers. Great. He was a center for Terry Bradshaw. And it says, unlike most young males in Pittsburgh, Bennett O'Malley had no idea who Mike Webster was. And everyone's going, "That's Mike Webster." And he says, "Who's Mike Webster?" I love that. Bennett is a close friend of mine. He's on my advisory panel. We have been shoulder to shoulder in this fight for years. And so he has no idea. And if you saw the movie Concussion, did you ever see it?
I've heard of it, but I have never watched it.
Oh, you need to watch it. Will Smith plays Bennett O'Malley, and it goes through those first 24 NFL brains that Bennett studied. 3 of them had this disease that he discovered. It's called CTE, chronic traumatic encephalopathy. From repeated traumas, your brain gets inflamed, neurons start dying, you start losing your mind. And as I'm reading this about guys that I played against, I'm just getting livid. And I'm writing notes down. I'm going page after page. And I just think, I got to find this O'Malley. The very next day, I just start Googling. So when the article, again, God has had his hand on me this whole journey. It's amazing all the things that have played out the way they have. Nothing just by coincidence. So I just get on reading this article. I'm like, I got to talk to O'Malley. So I track him down the very next day after I read it. He's the head coroner pathologist for San Joaquin County in Lodi. He's 40 minutes from my office. Now, he was in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania when the story was written.
Mm-hmm.
Now he's right next to me. I do some more Googling. I pull up his phone number. I call him. I knew I had the right guy. If you call Bennett's cell phone, and he has a real strong Nigerian accent, right? He says, "Yes, this is Dr. Bennett O'Malley. Thank you for calling. I'm sorry I missed your call. And this is how his message ended. And remember, God loves you." And I'm going, okay. I get emotional talking about this. I go,
Take your time.
I go, this is the right guy. So I leave him this voicemail. "Dr. O'Malley, my name is George Visger. I've had 9 NFL brain surgery, blah, blah, blah. We need to talk." So he calls me back within an hour. He says, "George, it's Dr. O'Malley. Yeah. We'd love to get together with you." He said, "But I can't tonight. I'm speaking at UC Davis Medical Center." Another one of these God's blessings. That's 15 minutes from my office in Sacramento. I go, "What time are you done?" He goes, "Oh, I won't be finished till 7:30. I said, "I'll see you at 7:35 in the lobby." We go out to dinner that night. We are bouncing stories back and forth about what the NFL did to him, me, till midnight. And at one point, he looks at me and he says, and Bennett will talk about himself in the third person, right? He says, why do they attack Dr. O'Malley? And I said, "I'll give you 9 billion reasons why," which is what the NFL grossed then. They grossed 19 billion the year I beat them. I said, "I'll give you 9 billion reasons why, Bennett." And he was born in Biafra during an air raid. The man, he's brilliant. He has 5 different degrees, including a master's in business. I mean, he's just amazing. But he couldn't. He goes, "Why don't they embrace Dr. O'Malley? I found this disease that's killing their employees." I said, "You are the boogeyman. They don't want to hear this. Because you're going to cause problems with making their money." And they attacked him I mean, they came out, they called him things like, who is this punk coming over from Africa telling us brain injury experts? I mean, they literally ripped him to shreds. And Bennett couldn't comprehend why. And so he and I, man, from that day on, we've been brothers in this fight. I love him to death. He wrote part of my foreword for my book. Not my foreword, but anyway, Bennett and I, we have been shoulder to shoulder in this battle. And when the movie came out years later and I saw it, and I knew the real story,
Mm-hmm.
you know, a lot of times they'll Hollywoodize stuff. I'm telling you, I knew the story beforehand and it was spot on. And Bennett helped direct it too. So they didn't need to pump anything up. And in that movie, if you watch it, they show the actual suicide of Justin Strelzik. He was another offensive lineman for the Pittsburgh Steelers. His nickname was Joker. And he started losing his mind, like Mike Webster did, you know. And he goes into an AM, PM in Pittsburgh or somewhere and tells the guy, I don't know, gives him like thousands in cash and tells him, I don't know, aliens are chasing or whatever. And he gets on the freeway and he's blowing through town, 100 plus miles an hour. Cops are chasing him. Gets on the freeway. You can pull this dash. And they used the actual dash cam video because I saw it way before the movie was ever made. They're on his tail. He zigs over headfirst into a tanker truck, blows himself up at about 90 miles an hour.
Oh, no.
His actual suicide is in the movie. And I'd already seen it years earlier. I had pulled it up on a lot of. So that movie, and Will Smith nails it. But, you know, it didn't do very well in the movies because people don't want to hear this. This will cut into their entertainment on weekends. You know what I mean? People want the blinders on. All these guys are all millionaires. They know what they're getting into. I used to hear that all the time. You know what you're getting into. No, I didn't. I was a 21-year-old rookie. I believed the doctors knew more than I did. I trusted them. Like if I go to a mechanic, I'm not going to tell him how to change my transmission. I don't know you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
People used to try to, well, you guys know what you're getting into. We knew we were getting into crippled up shoulders and elbows and knees. And there was never any mention that our brains were going to decompose and we end up killing people like Hernandez did, you know, and then killing ourselves. You know, Dave Duerson shoots himself in the chest to save his brain so they could study it. Guys started doing that. They knew they had CTE. Dave Duerson, all pro. He was the player rep. He was a sharp guy. Had an MBA from Notre Dame. I mean, these guys started killing themselves by shooting themselves. Junior Seau. He tried to drive off a cliff once, and I roomed with Junior's cousin, Terry. You know, I mean, all these things started happening. I'm like, Lord, what? And the NFL is just getting bigger and bigger and making more and more money. And I'm thinking, man, I am not being quiet. I've been jumping up and down for decades. If you Google my name, there are at least 40 or 50 pages on me, pages. Way before it was kosher for anyone. No one wanted to talk about brain injuries, right? I would tell people, I'm not embarrassed about it. I'm not embarrassed about my knee surgeries or how I broke shoulders. Why would I be embarrassed that I have brain injury from playing football? But no one wants to talk about that. My ex-wife, you say, no one's going to hire you. They know you have brain damage. I said, I have brain damage, but I work 10 times harder than a normal person does. I've learned ways to get through stuff, and I just power through things. So anyway, I'm kind of getting off track.
So is that when you got to the point where you were going to speak out and write your book?
Yeah. So then I started, the book actually started in about 2010.